People use the word narrative all the time, but what do they mean by it? In this video, I'll try to explain what the word narrative means in the context of our discussion of literature, and towards the end, what it means in other contexts as well. A narrative is a written or spoken retelling of connected events. So it has to be a telling or recounting. When we talk about a narrative, we're talking about an act of delivering the story. There's no narrative without someone or something telling it. It has to be about events. So if I tell you the lecturer sat in front of the camera, he was wearing a black t-shirt, behind him there was a bookcase. That's not a narrative, that's a description. Nothing happens. There are no events, so it's not a narrative, it's a description. If I tell you the lecturer sat in front of the camera, leaned backwards to reach for a book behind him and lost his balance, fell on the floor and a bunch of books fell on him afterwards, that's a narrative. There's events, something happened, something changes, so it is a narrative. Furthermore, these events should be connected. One event seems to have led some way to the next event. If the text has unconnected events, it's not a narrative, but just a list of events. We'll talk more about this in a video about plot. So when we say that a text is a narrative, or that a text has a narrative, or we use narrative as an adjective, that is to say something like a narrative text, a narrative poem, what we mean is, at least in the context of speaking about literature, is that it tells us a series of connected events. Indeed, a poem can be a narrative poem if it presents connected events. True enough, most of the poems that people read in colleges, universities for pleasure today describe emotion, situation, or even a place, or maybe talk about one specific event. So they're not really narrative poems. Today, most narrative literature is in prose, but it does not have to be that way. Now, thanks to social sciences like anthropology and political science and their adoption in media and general discourse, the word narrative gained another less specific meaning. So you can hear people say sentences like, Coca-Cola is trying to create a narrative that drinking their beverages makes you more fun. Or that a YouTuber has to create a brand and a narrative for their channel. Or that on the world stage, the Israeli narrative and the Palestinian narrative are in competition. The word narrative in this context does not mean a concrete text that you could read or listen to. You can check out the Palestinian narrative from the library. What they mean is, what these sentences, the word narrative means in these sentences, is a large collection of utterances of smaller text, sentences, stories that add up to something that works like a story. To go back to Coca-Cola, the collection of advertising and moments in movies and TV shows adds up to the image they are trying to create. The collection of events, text, things people say, of presenting the product in a certain light creates a simple narrative. Drink Coca-Cola, people will think you are fun. So that's the event. First event, drink Coca-Cola. Second event, people will like you more. Similarly, but with perhaps more complex narratives, groups like nations or political parties can bring forward a certain series of events that justifies their existence or their struggles. So to sum up, Narrative Narrative is the telling of connected events. Sometimes it is used in a broader sense of a story that is told again and again, even if there is no specific text that you can read. I hope this helps. If you think I took something simple and made it more complicated, that's fine, that's my job too. Thank you for listening.